How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it breaking down the latest Mets land in our latest jam-packed Big Mets update segment to break down, that being August 21st, 2025 at the time of the video first dropping, mere hours before the Mets kickstart their series finale between themselves and the Nationals in DC, as they lost this past night at the time of this video dropping, also by a final score of 5-4. If you want to know my initial reactions and analysis to what was a very frustrating one-run loss for the Mets there in DC, make sure to check out our post-game live show that was live this past night that you can check out after watching this one, or check out our condensed version of just a 2 to 3 minute format of a recap. They're live in the Bleacher Report app. Just look up Mets in the BR app or on their website. Scroll down, you'll find thumbnails that look like mine because they are mine as I break down the Mets every single day there for Bleacher Report. But today, guys, in our Big Mets update segment, we're going to break down what is happening and what is looking so great with Brandon Sproat. We're going to deep dive Brandon Sproat's latest dominant outing, the Mets' top pitching prospect there for AAA Syracuse, and ultimately how a call for him will inevitably be happening, but now it's just a matter of when exactly will it be. We're going to share some potential dates as when we could see Sproat get the call, why it makes sense for Sproat to get the call sooner rather than later, and everything else in between on that front. From there, we're going to talk about another pitcher, that being Tyler Megill. How is his rehab fare this far, and what is the latest news on his front? Because not only do we have a positive update to get into on Tyler Megill, as we also have one to break down in regards to Jose Siri. Finally, for what feels like the first time in forever, we have an update on Jose Siri to get into, and it's a positive one, as the speed demon of an outfielder is looking to return this Mets team before the end of the calendar season. A bit more on Baty, as this man has been nothing short of red hot with the bat over the past month plus, and everything else in Mets land that we're about to break down. So sit back, relax, and get yourself ready for the ride, which is our latest Big Mets update segment. Hit that like and subscribe on your way in, and let me know all your initial reactions to the following topics that we're going to break down today, as well as thank you guys so much for checking out our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek. Make sure to utilize our promo code WARDY10, that is WARDY10. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase, whether you want them for Mets tickets, concert show tickets, NFL tickets with a season right around the corner, you name it, as well as thank you for hearing from our amazing sponsor at Mumu, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. Folks, have you been seeing that big orange bowl that's making Mondays at Citi Field way more exciting? I'm talking about our amazing sponsor on the platform at Mumu. As the #1 Mets channel on YouTube, I absolutely love to break down stats, analysis, really getting into the nitty-gritty and numbers, and that is why I love so much Mumu, because they do exactly that with that same analytical approach when it comes to investing. It's a trading platform with professional-grade tools and premium research that other companies usually charge a pretty hefty price for, all come for free when you sign up as a customer with Mumu. But folks, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And thanks to Mumu's partnership with our beloved New York Metropolitans, all Mumu customers can get free tickets to any and every Mets home game on a Monday throughout the course of the season. That's right, folks. Free baseball all season long for the greatest fan base in sports. Not to mention Mumu Millions. If the Mets pull off 100 wins this season, one lucky Mumu customer is going to come out winning $1 million. And what's nuts about this is that Mumu has already given away $10,000 when the Mets hit first 25 wins this season, as well as $20,000 when they hit the 50-win mark. And when the Mets inevitably hit 75 wins, they're giving away $30,000. But as much as they love baseball, Mumu's #1 priority is jump-starting your investing journey, which is why they're giving the WardyNYM community up to $1,000 in NVIDIA stock just for making a qualified deposit and becoming a Mumu customer. So folks, what are you waiting for? Head to start.mumu.com/Wardy, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description to join the Mumu community. Now, let's get back to our Mets. Alrighty, folks, let's get right into this, and let's begin with a topic that I'm also excited to break down, because when Mets prospects do well, especially guys are on the cusp of making their MLB debut, I'm going to get excited. The same way that we beat the drum for multiple months on end this year on how Noah McLean, Cowboy Ohtani, as people love to label him, needed to get called up to the major league level. He has been so consistent and so dominant there in AAA Syracuse that McLean had to be considered sooner rather than later. And lo and behold, Noah McLean, just one start into his MLB tenure, looks like one of, not the most polished option of a starter the Mets currently have in their rotation. Which now begs the question, if one great top pitching prospect is going to step up right away, who is going to be the next for this Mets team? And there's a great reality that is going to be, yes, Mr. Brandon Sproat. And as we expand more on Brandon Sproat and his game, everybody, let's get into what he has been doing so right there that we've been seeing in the minor leagues, but especially as of late in his latest start that you guys can see along with me right here, right now, because Brandon had himself another absolutely dominant outing there, a huge outing to say the least there for AAA Syracuse. Sproat in his latest outing, folks, as you guys see down below, goes 6 innings of 83 pitch ball, 2 hits, 1 walk, 1 earned run, a whopping 8 strikeouts, and now has a 4.24 ERA in the season. Now, let me preface by saying that ERA is inflated. That has a lot more to do with what Sproat wasn't doing well in the first half of the season versus what he's done over the past month and a half now. Sproat, in the calendar month of July, had a .67 ERA across 4 starts or so, if not more, and what we saw there, obviously, out of July and August has been one not-so-ideal outing 2 starts ago, but now his latest one is as good as you could possibly ask for from Brandon. The fastball looks lively, it looks dangerous, and there's so much to love about Sproat and his potential impact to the major league level because this is the initial heralded prospect for the New York Mets. Let's not forget this, everybody, because when we think about top pitching prospects for the Mets, Sproat is the one who really put himself on the map first, going back last season there, starting in single A, making all the way to the triple A level in just 1 calendar year. That's impressive, to say the least. And what's also impressive to see what now Sproat has done over his past 7 starts now, everybody. If we include not just this start, we go to his previous one back on August 14th. He did allow 5 earned runs, had 3 walks and 6 strikeouts. Before that, though, he had 6 innings of 3 earned run ball, 4 strikeouts. The start before that, at the end of July, 5 innings, 0 earned runs, and 9 strikeouts. The start before that, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 strikeouts. The start before that, 5 innings, 0 earned runs, and 9 strikeouts. And what started everything for the better for Brandon Sproat, which had a lot to do with Francisco Alvarez helping him game call and catch some of his games there when we saw both Sproat and Alvarez at the minor league level together before Alvy got called back up by the Mets, and now he has surgery to be had, which is a completely different discussion, which still frustrates me to say as a fan. But Sproat, his first start going back to July 10th, 7 innings of dominant baseball, 0 earned runs, just 3 hits allowed, 1 walk to 4 strikeouts. From that point on, Brandon Sproat, more often than not, has been, as advertised, as truly one of the better pitching prospects in all Major League Baseball. And it doesn't just stop there when we break down Brandon Sproat and what's been so notable about him. It's that fastball, like I said, it's topping 99 to 100 on the gun. It topped out 99.2 to be exact in this start, and now going over the past 9 starts for Brandon Sproat, spanning just under 50 innings, he has himself a 2.05 ERA with 57 strikeouts. This is exactly why Sproat has been in the conversation for a little bit now to be the next man up for a call-up, and there's actually a clear opportunity for Brandon Sproat to get the call to potentially make his MLB debut as soon as this weekend based on the current rotation alignment for the Mets team. Now, whether or not it happens, that has yet to be seen, but the belief that Sproat will get called up is feeling more inevitable by the second, and no one should be surprised when we actually find out that news. The same way that no one was surprised when Noah McLean actually got the call, because we have been talking about every single step up until that point, how endless reporting was making it known that McLean was looking like the first domino to fall, Sproat would likely be second, and then Jonathan obviously is waiting in the wings as well, as Jonathan looks like he just might be the best of the bunch with pure upside and a guy that just has ridiculous swing and miss stuff. But something that's really helped a lot with Sproat this year is deviating away from his four-seam fastball while also having more of that heavy type sinker usage. And we've really seen the type of success that a guy like Sproat has had in part because of exactly that, because his four-seam otherwise last year we saw to a degree fell kind of flat. You know, it's one thing to throw gas that's going to help you get through single A, double A, but once you get to triple A, these guys know what to expect when it comes to velocity, and they're going to make you pay. So regardless of the fact if you're sitting 98 to 102 on the gun with your fastball, if that puppy's flat and they can clearly see it coming middle, they're going to rope that bad boy for a home run like no tomorrow. So Sproat's had some maturing to do, not only with his own mentality and his confidence, but also in his confidence with his actual stuff. And since he had that interaction and had those couple of games with Alvarez, catching his games there back in July, we have really seen Sproat find a confidence level and a moxie to him that we just haven't otherwise seen so far at the AAA level. So Brandon Sproat, guys, I would love to hear from all you guys in the comments down below. How do you feel about Brandon Sproat and his continued dominance right now in AAA Syracuse? And do you believe that he's inevitably getting the call sooner rather than later, the way that I and many other people in the industry firmly stand on right now? I would be genuinely surprised if Brandon Sproat is not called up to this Mets team within the next 7 to 10 days. And the reason why I say that is just because of, again, alignment more than anything. There is a clear opportunity for Sproat to be considered as soon as this weekend for the Mets. If that doesn't happen, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but you have to also ask yourself just how much are the Mets benefiting from keeping a guy like Brandon Sproat in the minor leagues right now? Because the answer to that is not all that much. You know, I get it. When you look at Sproat's K-to-walk ratio, it's not jaw-dropping. It's actually not great. He has just over 8 strikeouts per 9 this season to just over 4 walks per 9, but the context of how he's performed going back to to, again, the beginning of July, I think is really important context, because that's showing us more of what Brandon Sproat can actually be now, potentially getting the major league level. And as I have thrown out this idea plenty over the past 2 months, I said this about Noah McLean, I'll say it about Brandon Sproat. It makes too much sense not to consider Brandon Sproat at minimum in a piggyback situation with one of the abundance of other starters the Mets have, because if your name is not David Peterson, you have not provided any length whatsoever for this Mets rotation. The Mets currently have the ongoing record going back to 1901 of now 61 consecutive ball games in which every starter in their rotation outside of David Peterson has not even brought them to the 6th inning in said start. They have not recorded a single out in that 6th inning, rather. Peterson has. He just won 8 dominant innings 48 to 72 hours ago at the time of this video dropping right now. But the point we're trying to make here is that if you piggyback Brandon Sproat with, say, a Clay Holmes, or maybe Sproat starts the first 4 innings, then Holmes comes in long relief, or vice versa. Holmes starts the game for the first 4 innings, then you have Sproat come in for long relief. I think there's a lot of potential there, not only to keep Sproat on his normal alignment to pitch every 4th or 5th day, instead of being utilized in various ways as a reliever, while also, again, being in that groove as a starter, so it really doesn't hurt much of his development. You know, one of the things that David Stearns credited for why the Mets wouldn't call up Sproat and McLean earlier this season had a bit to do about specifically that usage. And they know that if they turn one of these young, highly touted and highly coveted pitching prospects into a reliever down the stretch, then they're not going to be able to utilize him as a starter at any point this year. And that's something that the Stearns clearly did not want to do, because we know that we're going to need as much help as possible. So all I'm telling you guys is, with it being a ticking time bomb as we're getting towards the end of August here, and with the Mets clearly in need of having more length. And how do you get length? It's by having less of a bullpen workload. Maybe having Sproat again go 4, having a Clay Holmes go 4, or even, again, if Frankie Montas can at all be competent as a middle reliever, a guy that can eat 2 to 3 innings, that is another situation where piggybacking can certainly be had, with Sproat getting the start and then a Montas coming in after. Otherwise, we'll see what happens in regards to this Mets team, but to say that Brandon Sproat is deserving now of getting to the major league level, I think is an understatement. Buddy is not getting any younger. He's already in his mid-20s. If he didn't turn 25, I believe he's turned 25 shortly, everybody. And these are just guys that you want to give a look, especially now when they're clearly finding a groove and a confidence that they otherwise didn't have, in the case of Sproat, especially in the first half of the calendar 2025 season. So to expand not only on Brandon Sproat, everybody, let's continue our conversation today and go from a guy who's been looking brilliant in Syracuse to a guy who's also looked brilliant, but this time in his rehab stint. And that is going to be none other than Big Drip himself and Mr. Tylor Megill. You guys know the drill with Tylor Megill by now. This man, crazy enough, the craziest story about Tylor Megill that I feel like we should not forget here is that out of all eligible stars that the Mets currently have in the minor leagues right now, pardon me, not minor leagues, but on the roster rather, Tylor Megill is arguably their second most valuable based on Fangraphs' wins above replacement for FWAR. What that means is, again, what Megill has accounted for this season really should not be understated. And when you look at the stats down below, it makes sense as to why he has been relatively productive for the Mets, all things considered. Now, the problem with Megill is like anything else, right? He's a guy that looks brilliant initially when he first gets the call and gets those first couple of starts, and then give it a month or so, and then he really starts to unravel. He's walking everybody and their mother and can't go beyond 4 or 5 innings. Feels like the exact same story can be said with this entire rotation outside of Peterson, but, you know, that's a discussion for another day, I suppose. Tylor Megill, the highlights that you see right now was him going 3.1 shutty in his latest rehab assignment that we saw there. Had 9 strikeouts, allowed just 1 hit, 0 earned runs, 0 walks there, and through 55 pitches, 39 of them were strikes. So talk about effective. As good of his second rehab outing as Tylor Megill could have had there for the Rumble Ponies. But the stats down below is more indicative of what he's done this season. 68.1 innings pitched, 14 starts, 60 hits allowed, 33 walks, 30 earned runs, 89 strikeouts, and a 3.95 ERA. Now, the expected numbers aren't necessarily all that pretty, but what is true in the case of Tylor Megill is that he's been in the organization for a hot minute now, and he is honestly a guy that the Mets could be banking on at the moment. With having such a lack of stability when it comes to the rotation, and to a degree, certain aspects of their bullpen, a guy like Megill, again, can be this nice bridge to really bridge the gap of the woes that the Mets have had when it comes to getting a certain amount of innings eaten. You know, a guy like Paul Blackburn, for example, just pitched 5 innings for the Mets a couple days ago, then he's designated for assignment right away the next day, and now he's no longer in the organization. So how do you fill a void like that, as the Mets were really trying to make Blackburn a Trevor Williams type as a long reliever? Well, Tylor Megill really fits the bill nice in that kind of regard. The problem that I have, though, and most can agree with this watching, I'm sure, is that it feels like the Mets have an abundance of guys that could profile better maybe as a lawn reliever than necessarily a true starter. You know, between Clay Holmes, Frankie Montas, who's now since moved to the bullpen, Kodai Senga as of late because he cannot provide length whatsoever. The list goes on and on. The Mets really just have not gotten that stability lengthwise. But Tyler Megill definitely has some nasty stuff. There's no doubt about it. And in regards to Tyler Megill, we do have a key update to share that Carlos Mendoza, Mets skipper, had to say. So let's go ahead and hear from Mendy himself.
Good. The velo was up, like 97, 98, got up to 55 pitches last time, so he's scheduled to make another one on Sunday, I think it is. And hopefully we get him to that 70 pitch mark, and we'll continue to build him up. But so far it's been good.
All right, guys, so there's the update from Mets skipper Carlos Mendoza himself. The goal now is to get him built up to 70 pitches for his next rehab start, which will be this Sunday, and then they will continue to go on from there. My assumption is that Megill is going to have, outside of that rehab start on Sunday, may have one or tops two more, but that should be it. I don't think he's going to be down there too long, especially because the Mets are clearly in need of having more reinforcements as soon as possible. But in the case of Megill, what is certainly positive, at least, is that you can never have enough arms. As much as you may say to yourself as a Mets fan, listen, Wardy, we've been there and have done that in regards to the Tyler Megill experiment. I really don't love the idea of going back to him. And while I understand that and completely hear you loud and clear as someone who also has had their level of frustration with Tyler and others just in the sense of the lack of consistency, right? Let's not forget, though, who Tyler Megill is, who he's supposed to be, and what he's supposed to be is really just a back-end starter for you. That's what Tyler Megill has basically been the MO of over the past couple years now. But he's been thrown in as your game one starter going back a couple of years ago on opening day when Jacob deGrom wasn't available, to, you know, being your game one or game two starters in other areas as well due to injuries. It feels like every single year Tyler Megill manages to find his way back in this rotation, not just because of performance, but more so because of a lack of performance and a health injury or a health scare on the front of one or multiple starters in this Mets rotation. Well, folks, fast forward all these months later, since Tyler Megill went down the same week that Kodai Senga did with injury in the first half of the season, he looks like he's finally getting set to return to this team sooner rather than later. And should that be the case, everybody, let's see what Megill can bring, because we know he has high heat when it comes to that velocity. We know he has a clear array of pitches, including that, you know, American ghost fork, if you will, that he loves to leave out, the spork, whatever they want to go about it. It definitely has been nasty when it's been right. And like I said, Megill's metrics, when you look at a lot of the aspects of his arsenal, he should be a lot better than what he kind of has been. And that's why I really wonder, could this finally be the time that a guy like Tyler Megill not only works out potentially for the rotation, but maybe becomes that dominant multi-A reliever we've been longing for? I understand we're trying to stretch him to 70 pitches. I understand the urgency and why to have him ready to be thrown in various situations, but I think that's the point. I think Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns are not going to be opposed to really trying to throw him in various situations down the stretch to see how he handles them, in similarity to when they kind of threw him in the bullpen in various situations a year and 2 years ago. So it's a wait and see as to what we're going to get in the actual product in Tyler Megill. But what we have known about him and what we have seen is that he clearly does have this stuff. Now it's just about, yet again, putting it all together and seeing how reliable he can be. How consistent can he be for this Mets team down the stretch here before potentially cracking postseason play? But going on from talking about Tyler Megill, everybody, let's now talk about one more man in rehab, because we have some really good news in regards to, yes, Jose Siri. Folks, say it with me. It's Siri time. It is absolute Siri time. I can't believe I'm saying this, but for the first time in a hot minute, we have a positive Jose Siri update. Now, when I say a positive Jose Siri update, what I mean by that is that for the first time ever, feels like for the first time ever, we have clarity on the Jose Siri situation. And I will just start this conversation by making it known I am the reason why Jose Siri had a setback, and I would like to sincerely apologize to every one of you guys watching this right here, right now. I ran into Jose Siri just walking around in the morning of a Beverly Hills morning that I had earlier this summer, because I was staying in the hills with a buddy of mine for a couple days so I could attend one of the Mets versus Dodgers games. I actually attended game one of that series when the Mets won in what was a nail-biting victory over LA. They ultimately split that series 2 games apiece. But I bumped into Jose Siri as I was walking back on my little coffee run. I was at a light, and me and my buddy Borna, we look right across the street, and he looks at me, he hits me, he's like, Is that that a player? Because he recognized that was a player, but he didn't know who it was. My buddy is not a Mets fan. He's a Padres fan. I'm the diehard Mets fan here. I look at him. I'm like, oh my God, that's Jose Siri. So what do? I walk right up to Jose Siri as one would. He was there with his girlfriend or his wifey. Very nice people. I just chopped it up with him for like 5 minutes, and I asked one, how are you feeling? That was the main thing. He said, I'm feeling good, and that was really encouraging to hear. And then he asked me, did I attend the game this past night? I told him no, because that was the game the Mets lost. He lost game 2 of that series against the Dodgers, but I did tell him that I did attend game 1, and I just told him, big fan of yours, been covering you since you obviously landed in Flushing, Queens, so I'm wishing you the best this season. And lo and behold, literally just mere days later, like not even a full week later or so, we come to find out that Jose Siri has a setback and he's shut down. So between meeting Jose Siri and also bumping into Jose Quintana at a first watch in Port St. Lucie at spring training a couple years ago, literally hours before it was officially announced that he was shut down with a lesion on his rib, clearly I'm the bad juju with bumping into already injured Mets players when they're not playing. So next time I see a Mets player out in the wild while they're on the injured list, I'm not going up to them because I'm the bad juju here. But all right, getting on the positive news, everybody. Here's what we have, and I'm going to just let Carlos Mendoza say it himself.
Siri is doing a lot of baseball activity, so hopefully he start playing minor league games next week. Yeah. With Wink, he's still, not doing much. Hitting in the cages, flips, some good days. Then he's having a hard time recovering at times, so it's kind of like we're still playing it slow with him.
So, unfortunately, this is exactly what I expected, and I also apologize if you're wondering why do I only have like 3 different types of Jose Siri highlights to show. That's because Jose Siri only played 10 games for the Mets this season, has a batting average currently of .050. He's been very limited in his sample size with the Mets, but we've also seen the flashes, like Jose Siri stealing home there. Basically, it felt like he was stealing home there in that game against the Astros, the same way that we've seen Siri also look tremendous with flashing the leather. He has pop, we know that for sure, yet he hasn't really exemplified that much yet for this Mets team. There's a lot of qualities that Jose Siri's game that I most certainly like, and he's a flair for the dramatic as well. This is a guy with that winnings rate, as you see from the 2024 numbers down below. He can give you a 20-25 home run season and steal a good amount of bags in doing so. He's arguably the fastest player in all of baseball. He's in the 99th percentile usually in sprint speed. He's in the 99th percentile usually when it comes in outs above average, and he has ridiculous arm strength. Like, when the Mets first traded for Jose Siri, they were trying to get an upgrade over Harrison Bader while at kind of a fraction of the cost, because Siri's contract is very cheap. And he's a guy that, when you look at the Baseball Savant numbers, they tell you, oh my goodness, he's very hit or miss. Like, he's either one of the worst batters in baseball or he's an absolute electric factory. And unfortunately for us Mets fans, we've only kind of seen the first thing, not the latter in the electric factory, but rather a guy that leaves a bit to be desired because he's been in limited spots and he hasn't performed all that well in those 10-game sample size. But again, key context, only 10 games. Secondly, the reason why I said I'm not surprised by the news from Carlos Mendoza is because Jesse Winker is not a guy that I'm anticipating to return back at all this year. I did not think he was going to return from the time that he had his latest setback there with that back flare-up the day after he returned from that oblique injury. I love Jesse Winker to death, but I promise you guys, in part, why the Mets brought in Cedric Mullins was not just to help out more of the outfield, but to also have another lefty bat in the slab, knowing that Jesse is nowhere close to returning. I will be shocked if Jesse Winker is back with this Mets team come postseason play, should they even make postseason. But again, we'll wait and see on that front. So, Jose Siri, everybody, knowing that he's going to be starting a minor league assignment in the coming days is obviously exciting. And now it's going to really kind of make things more interesting for this Mets team on how do they want to go about the roster, right? When they expand rosters as we get a little bit later into the season, is Jose Siri the guy that they want to consider as that extra roster spot? Or do the Mets go down the route of potentially DFAing Tyrone Taylor once Siri's rehab is officially done and he could be back up with this Mets team? Now, I know to some of you that may sound like a crazy statement because Tyrone Taylor has had flashes of being very valuable, especially on the defensive end, whereas Jose Siri hasn't proven anything for this Mets team. But the reason why I'm saying is just don't be shocked if it happens is because the Mets have completely written off the Tyrone Taylor impact, right? Taylor's bat has been non-existent for 2.5 months now, and because of that, that's why they not only trade for Cedric Mullins, but that's why you're barely seeing Tyrone Taylor get any playing time right now. And Tyrone and Jose do profile eerily similar in the sense that they're both very good defenders, proficient defenders, and they can both steal bags and base run very well. Tyrone Taylor is a speed demon. Jose Siri is a speed demon. So now you ask yourself, who has the lower floor between the two? And I think we could agree Jose Siri has a lower floor. Jose Siri has a floor that's so bad that he could bat a $180 at his best. Whereas when we look at ceiling, what can also be said in that same breath is that Jose Siri does have a greater ceiling than one in Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor, we know what he is at his best, and that was what we saw in the second half of last season, where he was really picking up with the bat, fastball first type batter, especially. Not great on the breaking pitches, but he can be nasty. And similar, honestly, in similarity to Jose Siri, that's a funny thing. But a guy that bested Harrison Bader for more of that daily reps in center field heading into postseason play. Fast forward now, this season, Jose Siri, at his best, this man can be literally a game changer. Like, he can single-handedly win games for the Mets if we actually get him right the way that he has in the past. And no, this isn't out of the realm of possibility. He's done this in past years with the Tampa Bay Rays. This is not overly foreign for a guy like him. Again, he's coming off of a 2024 season with 18 home runs. The year before that, he had 25. He's not going to go ahead and do that in like a week or two sample size before the season ends with the Mets, but what he can do is provide pop, provide elite base running, and provide a flair, a moxie that is something that Tyrone Taylor also lacks. You know, some people don't like Jose Siri because how he carries himself. He's a very extroverted personality, but I think it's quite the contrary in the sense of that being an issue for the Mets. I'll go further to say that I think David Stearns in part landed Jose Siri via trade this past offseason is because he likes the moxie, he likes the flair, he likes the swagger and the extrovertedness that comes with a player like him. And that is the kind of guy that the team can really rally around should he be able to clutch up maybe with a nice single up the middle with 2 outs, driving a run late in a ball game. Maybe he comes in as pinch hitter if he did not start the game himself. But between him and Cedric Mullins, I think the Mets are perfectly fine. Defensively, they're more than sound at center. And yes, the floor is fairly low when you look at the offense, but the ceiling can also be something great if you really bounce them well based on certain situational matchups. So again, guys, is it a guarantee that Jose Siri is going to be activated for Tyrone Taylor to be DFA'd? No, not true at all. There's a reality that Jose Siri maybe isn't even activated by the Mets to be on the squad before the season's end. Maybe he doesn't do enough as rehab to warrant that decision. Maybe the guys on the team are just so good and Tyrone Taylor gets more opportunities in the next week or so and he performs for all we know. All I'm telling you is that knowing that Carlos Mendoza has a positive update on Siri, knowing that things are trending in the right direction, is telling that the Mets are going to try to get him back up here before the year ends, barring changes. So we'll see if Tyrone Taylor's a corresponding move. We'll see if Jose Siri actually gets up with his team potentially as that extra man, because we know the Mets roster spots will expand to at least 2 more, if not more, once we get into September or so. So there are some things to look forward to in the sense of the roster changing a little bit from what it is right now. But I completely understand, again, the fans that don't love the idea of Siri based on his limited sample size. And all I have to say as a counter that is, remember, it's a limited sample size. David Stearns brought him in for a reason. And while you might not love all of David Stearns' moves, here's to hoping that a guy like Siri finally starting to get healthy can be the type of positive impact that he was hoping to be to begin the calendar season for the New York Mets here. But guys, as we continue on our discussion, we're not just here to break down Jose Siri, Tyler Megill, Brandon Sproat, but let's also break down briefly one and Brett Baty. Because what Brett Baty has done over the past month plus has been beyond impressive and deserves recognition. As we said in our post-game show this past night, Brett Baty now, over his past 30 games or so, has a batting average of right around 260 and an OPS of 860. Why is that important? Because that's really good, guys. If Brett Baty can at all be somewhat like that on a consistent basis, we have our third baseman now and for the future. Seriously, Brett is not a liability defensively when he's right. I know he's had some errors the past month and a half, but when Brett's right, he is as reliable as any infielder that the Mets could possibly offer you right now. Then you add in what he's done over the past couple of games. He's hit 2 towering home runs, a 430-foot bomb in Game 1 in D.C., then Game 2, a 455-foot bomb at 115 miles per hour. There's only been one other batter under the StatCast era that has hit a baseball that hard for a home run over the past decade for the Mets, and that's Pete Alonso. So talk about good company. Brett Baty's in good company there. Then you add in the home run. 455 feet, I'm sorry, what? That was not only the longest home run for Brett Baty in his career, but that was the second longest active home run that the Mets have actually blasted away this season. So we'll see. Hopefully we can get a 470-footer at some point. That'd be electric by someone. But Brett Baty has really been turning on big time with the offense, and it could not come at a more important time. The same time that Francisco Alvarez, unfortunately, is on the shelf now with injury, and he will be needing surgery, so there's no lock on if he even returns, and if he does return, how productive he's going to be with the bat. So losing that bat of an Alvarez who's batting 300 with over 1,000 OPS since he returned from his latest minor league stint is really disheartening. It's frustrating, but that's why seeing both Brett Baty and Mark Vientos, the young guns, ball out the way that they have as of late is so vital, because there's no way the Mets get anywhere this year when it comes to not just making playoffs, but doing any damage in playoffs, and they can't find some stability outside of their so-called Fab Four, that being Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Juan Soto. They need to make sure that that 5 through 9 provides some consistency, and if Brett Baty and Mark Vientos can continue to swing the bat, I'm not expecting Baty to be an 860 OPS guy all year long. But what I'm hoping is that he can stay more in that 800 range than north of that 700 range in the OPS, where you're finally seeing that power tapped in, and you're seeing him again. He has 15 home runs on the year, guys. Like, there's a reality where Brett Baty is a 20 home run hitter, which is kind of awesome when you think about it, considering how much we went to bat for this guy, how much he hasn't hit expectations, then he's exceeded expectations, and it feels like every single time that we try to write off a guy like Brett, he continues to go out and ball out and prove us all wrong on that night specifically. It feels like every single time that we're in the heart of, we have to talk about Brett Baty, everybody. He's not looking good. It feels like it's time to have Brett Baty, in fact, be sent down. He goes ahead and hits a go-ahead bomb to say, okay, you can't do it yet. Even though the Mets actually did, hilariously enough, send Baty down right after he hit a bomb off of Zach Wheeler earlier this season, back in May, if you guys remember, or it was April, one of the two, when the Mets dominated their homestand. They had a 7-0 homestand to begin the season, including sweeping the Philadelphia Phillies. And I was in attendance for the game that Baty hit the home run. Starling Marte then had himself a walk-off broken bat single up the middle. That is what did it for them. And I live streamed from the Cadillac Club at Citi Field, which was really, really cool at the time as well. So fast forward all these months later, we know that Baty obviously has the flair, but can he provide that flair now more than ever the way that he has the past week? That is the goal, most certainly not only for him, but for Mark Vientos and other key young bats. And now I think the great question is, what are the Mets going to do with a guy like Ronny Mauricio? You didn't consider pinch hitting for Ronny Mauricio for Luis Torrens in the ninth inning yesterday. And I kind of understand it in hindsight, just because Ronnie's not a good batter from the right side. I think he's going to profile best as a full-time lefty batter in his career. I don't think he's going to stay a switch hitter. And I've been saying this for like 2 years now. This is not just a new thing. I'll be surprised if Ronny Mauricio is a full-time switch hitter 3 years from now, if he's still at the major league level. But what I will say is that Ronnie has ridiculous raw tools and power, and the Mets are just letting that rot away on the bench right now. So I'm curious what the balance in playing time is going to be like. How are they going to go about Vientos, especially because, listen, as much as I like Marte because he can bat 280 in his sleep, Marte is not a guy that we can be giving consistent DH reps to when he doesn't have the power nor the upside the way that Vientos has with the power and the gap-to-gap ability. I think it would be foolish for the Mets to continue the sporadic notion of giving Vientos some reps at third base and then some reps at DH. It needs to be consistent. Vientos has bombs in back-to-back games and then a double in his latest game. 3 consecutive games looking good with the bat. Why? Because he's getting consistent playing time at DH. Why is Brett Baty thriving? Because he's getting consistent playing time at the hot corner and or second base. Keep these guys in lineup on a daily basis, regardless of the pitching matchup, and I assure you that that is going to be the best route for them to find the consistency that us Mets fans have been dying for throughout the course of this 162. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found yourself enjoying our latest Big Mets update segment here on the WardyNYM platform. Please let me know all your biggest takeaways in the comments down below from everything that we had to share and break down in this one. I understand iTunes still frustrated on the Mets' loss this past night. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, they secure the series victory against the Nationals, because if they didn't, then I'm going to rant my absolute head off, because the Mets have no excuse whatsoever to lose against the sorry Nats. I'm sorry, but we're in crunch time this season. Every game counts more than ever before, and to lose good games, to lose big games against bad teams, let alone by one run the way they did this past night at the time of this video dropping, is going to grind my gears as well as each and every one of you guys watching this. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one, and be on the lookout as I will be live later on today, right around 4 p.m. Eastern, there at playback.tv/DraftNeckMark, as myself and Mark Alino. You guys know Draftneck Mark plenty from Mets.podcast. Mark and I are great friends, and we collab all the time for Mets-related content, and we're going to be collabing and watching in real time and reacting to the latest Mets game series finale between themselves and the Nationals. That'll be on his platform and his watch party at playback.tv/again, DraftNeckMark. Make sure to check it out. It'll also, I think, initially be live on his YouTube or maybe his socials for a bit. Check out, be on the lookout on his channel there for a post, or on his social accounts there, so that way you guys could get linked up to it. Once I get the link, I will also post that on my community tab, should I be able to, for you guys as well. We're going to hang out, watch the Mets game live in real time, react to it, and then once the ball game is done, I'm going to hop off of there and hop back onto my platform here and go live for our latest post-game coverage, win, lose, or draw, as we always do throughout the course of the 162. Thank you guys again, and as always, no matter what, let's go Mets.